Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with veteran jazz drummer and educator Justin DiCioccio. He is internationally recognized as one of the foremost jazz educators of our time. In January 2001, he was inducted into the Jazz Education Hall of Fame. He has wonderful insights into teaching, and his inventive approach has earned him the title as the musician's teacher. He talked about his long road in jazz, why he loves it, along with a lot more. Enjoy.
Thanks for taking a minute out.
Yes, come on, man. That's what we do, right?
Right, it is what we do. Yeah. So what's been going on? You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I know that you're knee-deep in education. So what's been going on? How have you been holding up?
Well, I was okay when the pandemic hit, and then I lost all my work was canceled. You know, of performing, you know, playing and teaching and guest conducting, guest soloing, and master classes. All of that ended, you know, was put on hold, obviously, and much of it was rescheduled for the future, although no one had an idea that the future would have no end, at least at this point. No one sees the end. I was fine, and then I was doing a project in the end of August in Las Vegas, conducting the chamber music of Charlie Parker. Charlie Parker with strings and for his tribute for his 100th birthday anniversary. Everything went fine. You know, we pulled the concert off with social distancing, and everyone wore masks. You know, it was okay. Everything came off musically very well. Vincent Herring was the alto saxophone soloist, and we used a chamber orchestra from the combination of Las Vegas players from the Las Vegas Philharmonic and some Los Angeles players and some students from the School of the Arts who were the sponsors of this concert. And everything was fine. Concert went fine, and got on the plane, came home, and I was hit with COVID. So a real bad case of COVID. So for 7 weeks, I struggled with COVID.
Wow.
Until October, basically the end of October. But then I was fine, and I was lucky because I don't really see any residual effects or anything negative. But I'm doing fine, except that you know, there's still obviously no in-person work going on, and whatever I've been doing has been virtually, you know, doing Zoom private lessons and master classes and clinics, workshops, that kind of thing. So that kind of brings you up to date as far as the pandemic time.
Yeah. Well, you have a very storied career in jazz. Talk to me a little bit about where you were born and raised and how it all began for you.
Oh, sure. I was born and raised in Buffalo, New York. And my dream was always to go on the road and play with people like Sonny Rollins and Miles Davis, that kind of thing. And while I was studying, my teacher, who happened to be the principal percussionist in the Buffalo Philharmonic, his name was John Rowland, he said that you know, if you're going to do anything in music in this day and age, you need to go to college, a music school. So he kind of talked me and my parents into it, and I wound up at the at the Eastman School of Music, and eventually I got my bachelor's degree from the Eastman School of Music. And while I was there, I was playing with many wonderful jazz players, and primarily Chuck Mangione. I think you would recognize his name, I'm sure, and many players from what we call the upstate Burn, musicians from not only Buffalo, but Rochester and Syracuse and Albany, and musicians like Joe Romano and Sal Nistico and trumpeter Sammy Noto and Don Menza, tenor saxophonist Don Menza. So I got a real jazz education from working with that music. And I realized the importance of not only getting an education from the street, but also an education in an institution. And if you're going to function today, that's really the way to go. You need a street and a jam session and the road life, but you also have to have the smarts of having an education, being able to deal with all of that in the correct way. So, excuse me. So as I said, I graduated from Eastern School, and I was doing that towards the end of my senior year there. I was getting drafted into the Vietnam War, and I said to myself, I didn't go to school to learn how to use a rifle. So I had heard that the Marine Band in Washington, D.C. was looking for a percussionist who was also a drum set player to be able to do all the required drum set work in the White House, like an official drum set performer. So I auditioned and got the job, and not only did I play with the concert band, but I played with the chamber orchestra, and I became the White House drummer. And we had like a trio, quartet, jet trio, quartet, quintet, and the octet actually, and the big band. And the leader of the big band was drummerist and composer, arranger Sammy Nestico, who went on to have a brilliant career with the Count Basie band and writing for movies and other vocalists and acts, and was really big in education. His educational charts are really taught young musicians how to swing and how to groove. So that was it. And from working at the White House, not only did I play like, as I said, concerts and background music and trios, quartets, quintets, and big bands, Sammy Nestico's charts for dancing at the White House for all state dinners. I also made connections because we played all the Broadway shows that were happening at that time. And I also, at the White House, I played with Duke Ellington. I played trio with Duke Ellington. I played quintet with Duke Ellington. I also played trio with Dave Brubeck. Many jazz artists were always guests at the White House, so that they would either sit in or they'd be performing, and we'd wind up in some kind of jam session. And I also played with Stan Getz there. So I started making my new connections, so to speak. And as I said earlier, my dream was to perform with major jazz players. So I had made connections to New York from work at the White House. And so I moved to New York. And while I was in New York, I was doing shows, Broadway shows and acts and jazz gigs, whatever I had to do. I was married and had 2 children, so you take whatever gig you have to, especially in a place like New York City, where there's so much competition constantly on a real high level. So anyway, while I was doing that, while I was performing in New York, I began teaching privately, taking on some students. And a friend of mine said there was an opening at the High School of Music and Art, which is the performing arts school in New York City, which really started jazz education. I mean, it was really the premier, and it's not the first, one of the first schools to bring jazz education and on a secondary level to highest order. So anyway, while I was there at that time, as I said, my friend asked, who was teaching us, said, "Look, I'm leaving this job, and they're looking for a percussion and drum set teacher. Would you be interested?" And so I said, "Well, look, I'm not a teacher. I'm really like a performer." So, but the money was good, and it was a way of, a couple hours a day to have like a steady income, because as a freelancer in New York, you never know where your next gig is. So I took a job, and it was like 3 days a week, mornings. So while I was there teaching percussion and drum set, the chairman of the music department came up to me and said, and by the way, this is the beginnings of my jazz education career, so to speak. So the chairman of the music department from High Music and Art came up to me and said, look, you're doing a real good job, and we have an opening for next September. Would you be interested in teaching full time? So I said, no, I'm a player. I'm not a teacher. I don't do that. Yeah. So anyway, he said, well, we would really love to have you. So what would it take to get you here at the school? So I said, off the top of my head, and I have no idea why I even said this, I said, well, if you started a jazz program, I might be interested. Now, believe me, I had no idea what I was saying, but for some reason, it was the early beginnings of colleges, universities, all starting these stage band, what they call it at the time, stage band and jazz programs throughout the United States. So I was aware of that, and maybe that's where the idea came from. Who knows? But anyway, the chairman said, well, this is not a college, this is high school. So I told him, I said, I thought you said this was a specialized high school. If it's a specialized high school, you need to do special programs. So he said, the chairman said, what would you do? Now, again, I had no idea what I was talking about. I said, well, the school had like a dance band. I said, you need to turn that dance band into a real jazz ensemble. It's real jazz charts. And we're living in New York, and it's very easy. I have a lot of friends who are writing music and lead big bands, and I can get the music from that, so that would not be a problem. So he said, all right, well, what else? I said, well, you're going to have a jazz program, you need to teach improvisation. You need to teach jazz history. You need to teach combo improv, jazz theory, that kind of thing. So he said, wait, where are you going with this? And again, I had no idea what the hell I was talking about. I just knew that those were important aspects for jazz performance. So he said, well, if we could turn the dance band into like a jazz band, what else would you want? I said, well, then we need to have like an interdisciplinary approach. As I said, where we need not only a big band playing, but we need combo playing, because that's the essence. Combo and improvisation classes. And as I said, jazz theory classes, so that the jazz students can understand the nomenclature of jazz performance, as opposed to classical theory, which the school was teaching. Obviously, the music majors were taking, classical history and classical theory and so forth. But I said, like an addition, they need to understand what jazz theory and improvisation is all about. So anyway, as that went on through the years, we started a real heavy jazz program. We became the first really certified jazz secondary school program in the United States. Okay, so it became the first secondary school jazz program in the United States. And out of that program, we had some great musicians that have gone on, jazz musicians and musicians and R&B and funk players, and probably the top of the list would be people like Kenny Washington, drummer Kenny Washington, a big player Marcus Miller. Let's see, who else can I bet you would recognize? I'm missing names. Names are not coming to me at the moment. But some of the most outstanding, Bobby Broom, guitarist Bobby Broom. You probably know that name.
Yeah.
Banjoist. What's his name? The great banjo. I'm losing his name at the moment. His great banjo. Bella Flack. Flack. Yes.
Yeah.
He was a student there at that time. So, as I said, there was Bella Flack, drummer Kenny Washington, guitarist Bobby Broom, bassist, producer Marcus Miller. So it's a drummer, Omar Hakim. So there's quite a few students that went on to be major forces in this music. So basically, from that, I was there for about 20 years, and then I thought it was time to move on, and I was offered a job at the Manhattan School of Music in the jazz program there. So anyway, I took the job at the Manhattan School of Music, and after being there for a few years, the jazz director of the program decided to leave, and I was anointed, I guess, or whatever, and asked if I'd be interested in being the head of the jazz program. And of course, by that time, I had a lot of experience. When I first started out high school music and art, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. But by the time I got to Manhattan School of Music, I had a lot of experience. And so I told the president of Manhattan School of Music, yes, I'd be interested, but I wanted to change the curriculum because I didn't agree with the direction the curriculum at that time that the Manhattan School of Music was taking. So so she said, that's what we want. That's exactly what we want. New, fresh ideas. So anyway, I took the position. I changed the curriculum, and not only changing the curriculum, but I began a pre-college program for high school students, and I also created a doctoral program. And so we were educating now high school students, undergraduates, graduate students, and doctoral students in jazz. And while I was doing all of that, I was traveling all over the world, actually performing and guest conducting and doing clinics and workshops, as I said, throughout the world. It was wonderful for me, a wonderful incentive to be able to take what we were doing at the Manhattan School and bring it to China and Australia and New Zealand and Amsterdam and Paris and Italy and so forth. Well, anyway, I should also state that, and maybe that thought will come back, not only while I was at the Manhattan School and running a program and teaching at the Manhattan School and traveling all over the world, as I said, performing and guest conducting, do master classes and workshops and so forth. I was also running while I was at the High School of Music and Art, I was running the McDonald's Jazz program. That was the high school, the McDonald's Jazz high school program. And that's where Rob Sheffs was a student of mine. There he played it there. And there were many, many outstanding high school jazz students that came through the McDonald's program. And then the McDonald's Jazz program evolved into the Grammy High School Jazz Ensemble program. And some of the finest jazz musicians performing today have come through, I have to say, have come through either High School Music and Art, School of Performing Arts, the Manhattan School of Music, and the McDonald's and the Grammy Jazz programs. So I feel really blessed that I've been able to be a part of all those wonderful jazz education programs.
Wonderful. So what did you learn from, at the White House and with all of these masters and legends of jazz? What did you learn that you want from them that you wanted to give to the kids that you've taught?
Well, what I always believed in is I teach life through music. And my thinking was always that hopefully I'm teaching the students well enough so that if they want to become professionals, we've helped them along the way to do so. But realistically, the majority of students that come through will not be professional musicians. But what they've learned through music, what they've learned through jazz about life will make them successful in any other field, whether they become doctors or lawyers or business people or great mothers or great fathers. they will bring those traits about sincerity, love, honesty, being on time, taking care of business. They will bring that to whatever field they decide to go in, and they will be better for it and be more meaningful, because you can learn those traits from other ways, like through sports or whatever. But in music and in jazz, we learn it with artistic sensitivity. That's the key. With passion, with emotion. Artistic sensitivity with passion and emotion. And in addition to that, their lives will be enriched. See, we not only need great jazz performers, but there probably are too many jazz performers. What we need is a more enlightened audience and a more meaningful audience and an interest in following jazz and listening to jazz. So those students that go on to other study or other fields, they will hopefully become an audience for jazz. And that's what we need. We need more audience development at this stage than we need jazz performers. There are plenty of jazz performers, and the level of playing today has never been higher, and the job market has never been lower. So that's what we need to do, in my opinion. We need to develop, if jazz is going to continue to evolve and grow, we need to have more interest in the music from outsiders. And jazz education teaches it's naturally built, so it's a win-win situation for all students. As I said, their life will be enriched because of the experience of playing jazz, and they will go out if they become like doctors or lawyers or business people. They won't sit at home. They'll be knowledgeable about the arts. They will go out and they will go to like concerts, to jazz concerts, to classical concerts, to dance concerts, to museums, to galleries, read great books, dance performances, and they will be an arts audience there, and they will understand what jazz is all about because of the experience of having performed. So even though they did not have a career in jazz, decided not to, and maybe some of them weren't even that great of individual players, but that's not why we're doing it. We're doing it to get the experience of understanding and the feeling. Jazz and music is emotions and feelings. It's not mathematics and science. Mathematics and science are part of music, yes, but music and jazz are specifically emotions and feelings, and that's what we're trying to teach you. So, as I said, what we're really doing, in my opinion, is teaching life through music.
Right on.
And today, in addition to continuing performing as I am and doing classes, and today, pre-COVID today, as I said earlier, with COVID, everything is basically on hold now. But pre-COVID, in addition to performing, doing classes and master classes and clinics and workshops and teaching, where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought. I had 2 or 3 ideas. I lost it. Wherever I was going, I lost it. But anyway, did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. So I got one more for you.
Yeah.
Why do you love jazz?
I love jazz because of the feeling. When, as I said, to me, music and jazz are emotions and feelings, and what it does to me, the honesty of the music, the truthfulness of the music. When I hear music, I get like a tingle throughout my body, and it makes me want to smile. It makes me want to feel good. I feel good when I listen to jazz. It makes me want to move around. It makes me want to dance. It makes me want to smile. And that's basically what jazz does for me.
Right on. Justin, thank you for taking a few minutes out for Neon Jazz today. I love your story. I really appreciate it. And good luck with the return to the stage and the regular world.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Boston, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Justin for his time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.